We're set up here and we're ready to make jazz fusion history.
Borromean Odyssey is the name of the album project released at the end of August 2019. It features Todd Sucherman on drums, Gary Husband on keyboards, and myself on bass and all guitars. It was a great experience to collaborate again with Gary, who was featured on my 3 previous albums, and it was a first collaboration with Todd, who's an amazing drummer.
I was particularly flattered that Antoine asked me to do this record, because I'd had his last 3 records with, Simon Phillips, Vinnie Colaiuta, and Gary Husband on drums, and before that, Dave Weckl, Terry Bozzio, Chad Wackerman, Gavin Harrison. So clearly there's no pressure from the historical perspective on me today.
Before Todd recorded his parts in January 2019, he had previously performed some of the music live during drum shows around the world. So by the time he was in studio to record his tracks, he was already very familiar with some of the music. I discovered Todd through his rendition of a Jerry Goodman song, and I immediately thought that it would be a great idea to one day collaborate with him. When I realized that he was actually familiar with some of my music, it prompted me even more to begin a conversation about some form of collaboration.
Antoine contacted me over the summer about working on his record, and I was really overwhelmed, surprised, and flattered. Because I really haven't played much fusion, since the club days in Chicago, really. But I guess he'd seen Tears of Joy, the Jerry Goodman track in 13, and it came at a great time because this was such an incredible challenge. I was on the road, so I wanted to commit this music to memory, so I could really come in, be a part of the pieces of music. Antoine writes really fantastic, interesting pieces, beside the fact that he's an incredible bass player. I wasn't familiar with his guitar playing, and I think he's got some Holdsworthian sensibilities with some of the lines, and also has like an Andy Summers type of sensibility with some of the chordal stuff, and that added in with Gary Husband, who's a dear pal for years, and just an absolute genius on the drums and keyboards. It's one thing to be a genius on one instrument, but 2, that's something else.
On this project, Todd brought the precise playing that he's well known for, with the dynamics and the grooves that the music required, and the overall exciting drumming that you would expect from him. There's no doubt that he prepared extremely well for this project. I was very flattered about this, and I was very pleased with the result. Gary's keyboard playing is heavily featured on this album. He practically plays the solos on every song, and interestingly, he plays 2 tracks on the Rhodes, which I think came out really well. My own parts were recorded over a fairly long period of time. As usual, I tend to work on multiple projects at a time. Most of the music on this album was actually composed before I worked on Proto-Mundi, which was released in 2017. I had kept all that music on standby, and I decided to come back to it after Proto-Mundi was released. And with a fresh perspective, I kept some of the original tracks, I re-recorded some new parts, and worked on new arrangements. So it was a process that I think improved the music overall, one step further to what it was originally.
We've just been finishing up tracks here, all very exciting. I've actually managed to get some solos that I can live with, and playing all this new music called Borromean Odyssey by Maestro Antoine Fafard. I hope you enjoy it.
All right, here's a little bit about the gear we'll be using today on Antoine's record. We're in my studio just outside of Austin, Texas. This is a Pearl Masterworks drum kit, new as of 2018, in Cameroon Black Limba, finished with Black Burst. It's the studio recipe, which is a 6-ply shell that's maple and gum. It's a tremendous, tremendous drum set, and even the snare drum's a winner. So I'm using the same setup for the entire record as opposed to like a rock record where you're choosing various snare drums, various cymbals, hi-hats, so it has sort of a uniform feel for the whole record. 12 by 6 bell bronze snare drum from Pearl that they're testing out right now. Rocket toms, cymbals by Sabian, heads by Remo, microphones by Audix, ProMark drumsticks, my signature model. And we're using, over there, we got 2 Apollos, 2 ADL 600s, Focusrite, 8-channel, Neve Portico, FMRs, a bunch of mic keys over there.
Borromean Odyssey was mixed by Davide Squaldini, who's been a close collaborator since the album Sphere that came out in 2016. I think that this album really stands out sonically, and I'm really impressed with how Davide mixed it.
As soon as the Protomundi album was completed, Antoine gave me some songs to pre-mix. These pre-mixes were sent to Todd Sucherman as soon as he was ready to record his parts. The instrumentation was different from his previous albums. We have a much more present lead synth that is played by Gary Husband. There's also an electric piano, the Rhodes, and this difference in sound choices was something that we wanted to work with and exploit somehow. Sphere was the first album I've worked with Antoine Fafard, and since then I always try to keep a kind of signature sound for his projects. Obviously his music changes a lot from one track to another. I still try to focus on a type of sound. In the previous albums we have very long verbs on the drums especially. In this case we wanted to try something drier with more punch and also richer harmonics in the mids-high section. Mixing Antoine Fafard's tracks is always quite difficult and complex. Most of his songs are composed of many tracks. In the case of Borromean Odyssey, most of the songs are 100 plus tracks. Usually when I mix, I compare and get confirmation of my mixes, listening to other songs, other projects, famous or not, that have a similar sound. In the case of Antoine Fafard, it seems like we're setting the standards somehow. He plays a specific kind of jazz fusion that's just different from anything else that I could find. So every time I do something with him, I try something new. I'm quite happy with the resulting mix of Borromean Odyssey. I hope you enjoy it.
I'm going to attempt to use this 1970s time capsule old Premier concert toms on the song Trident. So we're just going to set up a couple microphones out here and maybe two up here for some tom overdubs. Like these are the In the Air Tonight drums. This is a 1978 kit. Phil Collins used Premier 75 to early 82. Everyone thinks Gretsch are those drums. They're not. The Premiers on all those records. So that's sort of why I ended up with this Cantaloupe Behemoth. Also, it's a little bit of a Keith Moon thing. He used the polychromatic gold in the 74 era of the Who.
Borromean Odyssey album is now released. A video file of the complete album with footage from the recording sessions is also available. For drummers, I have drumless tracks available exclusively on my website, and I also offer a limited edition box set which includes my complete solo discography. Borromean Odyssey is the new album. I hope you'll enjoy it.